What's up, Taiwan? I'm Erika Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's Prince of the Pommel horse has won gold at the Artistic Gymnastics World Cup in Azerbaijan. Li Zhikai tied with U.S. gymnast Steven Nedorosik with overall scores of 15.400. Li's win takes him one step closer to qualifying for the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. He won silver on the pommel horse at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and gold at both the Asian Games and World University Games last year. Cherry blossoms are now in full bloom in southern Taiwan, earlier than last year.
盛樱现象今年提早了开花10天左右，樱网就盛开。另外，我们之前有请那个树医生有那个做土壤改良啦，还有那个土长枝啦、天狗巢壁的修剪，之后呢会一年比一年漂亮。
This year's Alishan Cherry Blossom Festival kicked off on Sunday and will run for a month. Organizers say they expect visitor numbers to peak next weekend. In January, weather forecasters predicted an early cherry blossom season because of climate change and a warmer winter. More holidaymakers in Taiwan are opting to spend their vacations in camper vans rather than the country's increasingly expensive hotels. But the new trend is creating a few problems for local authorities. Jeremy Olivier has this story.
Taiwanese vlogger Dake is a big fan of the great outdoors. His YouTube channel, Campfire, follows him around in search of new campsites to enjoy the country's natural beauty. But rather than spending the night in a tent, Dake is all about sleeping in his van, which is decked out with 2 mattresses, a kitchenette, and other creature comforts.
非常遥远，你可能要去好几天，那你可能到这边晚上需要休息，车速都可以在有充分休息，而且现在车速里面可以坐得很舒服。但是一定要记得，所有的资源都不是免费的，你在山上资源我们都好好珍惜。
It's part of a growing trend in Taiwan. Post-pandemic market forces have made the country's hotels more expensive. So now people are looking for other ways to spend their vacation. That includes overnighting in their cars near scenic areas. But the newfound love of van camping is also causing some problems for local authorities. One national park saw around 2,500 visitors in a single day at the peak of its high season. Workers were forced to chase people out of parking lots when the park closed each day. Officials say the increased presence of van campers in these areas is disruptive to local ecosystems.
他们有时候就会第一个会制造声响，不然就是会用一些灯光，其实都会干扰到他们的生态。
They also point to trash and other waste left behind by some more careless campers. One of the issues at play is that, unlike with tent camping, the country has no specific laws around camping out in cars. Some have put forward suggestions on how to get things under control.
数量上，它可以做管控，在我们园区容许的范围内，以价质量的方式，或者它就开放申请的方式，用抽签的方式都可以。但是进来之后就是遵照规范。
Seasoned van campers like Dake hope more people can take up their hobby, but say they should follow the principle of leaving no trace and make sure Taiwan's natural scenery can continue to be enjoyed by all. Howard Chang and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
A planned resort in eastern Taiwan is angering the local indigenous community. They say they were denied a voice in what happens on their own land. John Ventriez takes a look.
A big change could be coming to Pinaski, a rural indigenous community in Taiwan's southeast. Developers are planning a 177-room resort surrounded by close to a dozen villas in the village. It means tourists could soon outnumber its some 600 residents. The land is privately owned, but only a small street separates the site from the rest of the village. And at an environmental impact hearing, community members made it clear they feel they should have a say in the matter.
我们村民有相当的权利去对有很多的不定性的事情去做这个未来的思考，
让我们好好的过我们自己生活的这种要求。
Though these speakers stop short of calling for the project's cancellation, they say they're frustrated that no one has consulted them, even as environmental impact assessments go forward. The developer's representative is taking a conciliatory approach.
不是说有法我就不管那些私人的情绪，所以召开这个会议，当然就希望也照顾到个人情绪上的一个反应啊。
But it's done little to end frustrations, especially with the county government, which has chosen to stay out of the matter.
如果这个开发案这么重要，我们的公部门应该有人可以坐在这里。
The county says sending someone to the environmental hearing would have made it look like they were supporting the developer. Instead, they say they will remain neutral and leave the final decision to higher authorities.
我们必须充分了解双方，而且协助沟通哦。那了解之后呢，我们也会将相关的资讯转递成中央的相关所属机关来做后续的处理。
This is far from the only dispute over indigenous land and its use in Taiwan. And what's happening in this village shows that indigenous communities across the country still struggle to get a say in what happens on their land. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
On Taiwan's east coast, a community is building their own Austronesian-style sailing boats. As Rick Liu reports, it's reviving Taiwan's seafaring traditions and reconnecting the country with the Pacific Island nations.
Local business owner Isin Chen has taken to building wooden outriggers in his spare time. He lives along Taiwan's east coast, facing the Pacific. And, inspired by the historical journeys made across this ocean, he is crafting his vessels in a traditional style. He hopes to help revive a sailing culture in danger of dying out here.
就是你经过这样子，你身体去体验、去学习之后，你对于台湾的古代的一些历史、一些状况，没有写成文字的那个时代的状况，你会开始有一点点感觉，接近它。
With no written records of how ancient Taiwanese sailed, Isin found a Polynesian boat design from Hawaii, a country 8,000 kilometers away across the Pacific, but linked to Taiwan through millennia of seafaring migration and trade. This part of the country is largely inhabited by indigenous Taiwanese, groups that have lived in harmony with the sea along this coastline for millennia. But those sailing traditions have been lost to time, as settlers from Europe, Japan and China came to Taiwan. Those settlers colonized these islands from the 1600s, oppressing and killing much of the indigenous community. They now make up just 3% of the population, and their languages and cultures are at risk of disappearing. Isin is not indigenous himself, but his project comes as communities here are increasingly reaching out to Pacific Islanders to exchange their knowledge about traditional customs, languages and culture.
那现在是人家发现到，现在其实台湾跟太平洋岛屿是相关的，甚至有人说台湾是太平洋岛屿的发源地，所以开始慢慢的去重视自己的海洋的活动，因为他们知道说原来有一群跟我们一样的人住在很外面的岛屿。
Back in his workshop, Isin also likes to pass on to the local community what he's learned about traditional boat building and seafaring. One day, he hopes to turn this into a sailing school.
这种太平洋岛屿式的船我们台湾经常翻译为叫南岛的船，它有一种在台湾有一种特别的美感，然后有一种很特别的跟我们有一种 connection， 一种连结的感觉。
On the edge of the vast Pacific Ocean, this coastline is battered by high winds, large waves and strong currents. Many Taiwanese today consider the sea a dangerous boundary that should not be crossed. But people like Isin choose instead to harness these powerful forces of nature. For them, seafaring is a means of connection, uniting Taiwan with oceanic people thousands of nautical miles away, while anchoring it firmly in its roots. Leon Lien and Rick Liu in Taidong County for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, the All-African Games are officially underway in Ghana. Here are some of the highlights from the opening ceremony. I'm Erika Liu. Take care and see you next time.